Number 1.
Hattie Jackson, age 7, went missing from Washington, D.C. on July 21, 1961. On the afternoon of July 21, 1961, Hattie tagged along with her 10-year-old brother, Herbert, and his friends to Rock Creek Park. They went swimming in the creek, played ball, and played on the playground. While they were swimming, a police officer approached them and warned them that the water was polluted, so they shouldn't swim there. An unknown white man, in his early to mid-30s, was sitting nearby, watching the children play. After the police officer left, the man offered to drive the children to a location 2 miles away, where the water was clean. The children declined. They resumed playing, and then noticed that Hattie was gone. Several witnesses came forward with information that led investigators to believe that this man had abducted Hattie. 2 young men who were hiking on the trails saw Hattie being helped into the front seat of a dull blue-gray older model car with dark tags in a parking area adjacent to the park. The man who owned the car matched the description of the man who had been seen in the park. The police officer who had warned the children about the polluted water had also noticed the man watching the children play, but said he was not behaving suspiciously. The officer noted that he wore a white shirt, gray trousers, and a black belt. He had brown hair that appeared to be growing out from a crew-cut style. A massive 2-day search was done of the park, and dogs tracked Hattie's scent to the parking area where she was witnessed entering a vehicle. A sketch of the suspect was issued by police, although I do not have a copy of it, am attempting to obtain it. Police considered a man named Thomas Welton Holland a person of interest in Hattie's disappearance. Holland was from Baltimore, Maryland, and had a record of interstate robberies, as well as vicious sex acts against children. Although there was no evidence connecting him to the case, he bore a resemblance to the sketch. The case quickly went cold, and the man was never identified, nor did any new clues surface as to where Hattie may have ended up. There is an unidentified 3 to 7-year-old black female who was found in Northampton County, North Carolina in 1983. She was believed to have been there for quite a while. Northampton County is just south of the Virginia-North Carolina border. Due to the poor quality of the newspaper photo of Hattie, and the fact that the reconstruction photo of the deceased girl looks older than 7, it's hard to say, but here is a side-by-side comparison. While DNA and dentals are both available for Jane Doe, neither is available for Hattie, according to NamUs. NamUs also states that Jane Doe appeared to have a nasal fracture at some point, which is not mentioned in Hattie's file. I'm not too quick to dismiss the match based on that detail, however. It appears that the only information in Hattie's NamUs file is what was in the newspaper. I'm guessing it was a good Samaritan who entered her, and not necessarily someone who would know if she had a previous injury. If she does turn out to be this North Carolina Jane Doe, I think it will be worth considering that she may also be connected to the disappearance of Phyllis Powell. Phyllis is already ruled out as this Jane Doe. Their cases both are believed to be stranger abductions in the early 1960s, when such an occurrence was far less common. Phyllis was from North Carolina. I will submit this possible match, and hopefully it will lead to a DNA sample being collected from her family. I will also attempt to locate the suspect sketch through a library or law enforcement agency, and will update if I make any progress on either. Hattie would be 59 years old today.
Number 2.
Thursday's Child, a charitable organization that assists homeless or at-risk teenagers, claims they made contact with Kimberly in 1984, 2 years after her disappearance. They stated Kimberly was working as a prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywood, California, under a pimp named Redacted. She had straight bleached blonde hair and was using the name Kimberly Gardner. The woman the Thursday's Child workers saw was approximately 4 inches taller than Kimberly was reported to be, however. Kimberly's mother did not believe the Hollywood woman was her daughter, so no investigative action was taken at that time. This doesn't line up with anything known about Kim. There's no way to know 100%, but it does seem unlikely that she was trafficked to this area. Not enough information is known about her associates in Davenport or Texas. According to an old Archive Doe Network posting, Kim Doss was found in Sugar Land, Texas on April 5, 1989. However, I can't find any other source for this, and she is still on NamUs and various other databases. It is an odd occurrence, and I'm not sure what it means. To make matters more confusing, there is another missing woman named Kimberly Doss. From what I can tell, her middle name was Ray, though it doesn't appear on some of the databases. She went missing in May 1979 from Jacksonville, Florida. Not many details are known about her disappearance, but her mother claims she was abducted by the Outlaws motorcycle gang. I'm not sure if the Hollywood sighting could be related to this Kimberly instead. It is clear that Kim's family wanted to find her. I found ads like these in the local newspaper, this one clearly from her mother, printed in October of 1982. I really can't find any information on how old Kim's boyfriend was at the time or if has been investigated, or whether the friend Debbie in Ridgeview was ever found. Her boyfriend seems to be the last person to be in contact with her, and the only witness to her discussing staying with Debbie. Of course, it is possible that Kim headed back to Texas or to some other location. Because this case is fairly old, not much in the way of digital footprint exists. I still think there is hope for someone to solve this case, perhaps one of her friends who saw her around that time. Thursday's Child, a charitable organization that assists homeless or at-risk teenagers, claims they made contact with Kimberly in 1984, 2 years after her disappearance. They stated Kimberly was working as a prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywood, California, under a pimp named Redacted. She had straight, bleached blonde hair and was using the name Kimberly Gardner. The woman the Thursday's Child workers saw was approximately 4 inches taller than Kimberly was reported to be, however. Kimberly's mother did not believe the Hollywood woman was her daughter, so no investigative action was taken at that time. This doesn't line up with anything known about Kim. There's no way to know 100%, but it does seem unlikely that she was trafficked to this area. Not enough information is known about her associates in Davenport or Texas. According to an old Archive.do network posting, Kim Doss was found in Sugar Land, Texas on April 5, 1989. However, I can't find any other source for this, and she is still on NamUs and various other databases. It is an odd occurrence, and I'm not sure what it means. To make matters more confusing, there is another missing woman named Kimberly Doss. From what I can tell, her middle name was Ray, though it doesn't appear on some of the databases. She went missing in May 1979 from Jacksonville, Florida. Not many details are known about her disappearance, but her mother claims she was abducted by the Outlaws motorcycle gang. I'm not sure if the Hollywood sighting could be related to this Kimberly instead. It is clear that Kim's family wanted to find her. I found ads like these in the local newspaper, this one clearly from her mother, printed in October of 1982. I really can't find any information on how old Kim's boyfriend was at the time or if has been investigated, or whether the friend Debbie in Ridgeview was ever found. Her boyfriend seems to be the last person to be in contact with her, and the only witness to her discussing staying with Debbie. Of course, it is possible that Kim headed back to Texas or to some other location. Because this case is fairly old, not much in the way of digital footprint exists. I still think there is hope for someone to solve this case, perhaps one of her friends who saw her around that time.
Number 3.
In 1979, 13-year-old Diane Janice Dye lived with her mother Patricia and brother Dean in their house in San Jose, California. Her parents were going through a divorce, which made her deeply upset, according to her friend Nadja Christie. Her father lived at another location from her, and she didn't get to see him often, Nadja said. She was also upset because her mother worked long hours at a winery, and she was not home very much. Other than the divorce, Diane was a happy and excited girl who loved sports. She was always playful, joyful, just filled with life, Nadja said. She made me happy whenever I was around her. Diane and Nadja became friends when he was around 12 years old, through Diane's brother Dean. Because Nadja had his own issues at home, he was practically living with the Dyes. Diane became like a sister to me, Nadja said. I adored her. Nadja said that during this difficult time, Diane became quite rebellious and suggested the divorce took a toll on Diane's lively spirit. She began smoking cigs and marijuana, Nadja explained. At first she enjoyed the freedom we had to just listen to music and party, skip school. Then she became quite withdrawn. On the evening of July 30, 1979, Nadja said he found Diane on her doorstep. I was the only one home, until I heard her crying outside, Nadja told Dateline. When I went to console her, she told me of her plans to run away. I spent over an hour trying to talk her out of it and thought I had convinced her, he explained. Diane asked Nadja to leave her alone, so he left. That was the last time he saw Diane. 3 days later, Nadja tried calling Diane to come over. He said no one picked up the phone at the house, so he went over to see if anyone was around. When he got there, he found the front door locked, which he said was unusual for the Dye family. I knocked and Patricia, Diane's mother, answered the door, and she seemed upset. She asked me, "Do you know where Diane is?" And I told her no, I had no idea, Nadja told Dateline. According to Nadja, Diane's brother Dean had not seen Diane since that same day Nadja had found her crying on her doorstep. Dean Dye declined to be interviewed by Dateline due to health complications. Nadja described Dean as having been devastated by his sister's disappearance. The San Jose Police Department confirms that Diane's case is a missing persons case, and they are investigating. However, they are not approaching it as a homicide. They did not comment further on the case to Dateline. Nadja said he is in contact with Diane's brother Dean, as well as Diane's father Bill. Diane's mother, Patricia, passed away several years ago. Nadja says he is leading the efforts to find Diane and runs a Facebook group to continue his mission. Diane will have been missing for 39 years on July 30, 2018. There have been a few alleged sightings of Diane over the years across the country, from California to New Jersey. None has been confirmed as being Diane. I miss her every single day of my life, Nadja said. Her disappearance tore my soul apart. None of us ever got over it, he told Dateline. He says if Diane is still out there, he hopes to at least hear from her, to know she's as safe. Diane Janice Dye would be 52 years old today. At the time of her disappearance, she was described as 5'2" with shoulder-length light brown hair and hazel eyes. If you know anything regarding Diane's disappearance, please contact the San Jose Police Department at 408-277-4141.
Number 4.
Keyla Contreras, age 19, went missing from the East Harlem, aka Spanish Harlem, neighborhood of Manhattan, New York on January 12, 2012. She is deaf and nonverbal. She was last seen at 7 a.m. leaving her building at 2390 2nd Avenue and never returned. I really wish I had more to say about this case, any clue as to whether she would have left voluntarily or if she was more likely the victim of a crime. There's just nothing there. No website for her, no queries from family or friends, no DNA or dentals entered in NamUs. The Village Voice newspaper made an attempt at generating some publicity for her just after her disappearance occurred, but some very insensitive readers apparently thought the comment section of the article was an appropriate platform to bash the author over her use of the term deaf-mute. This, of course, led to a heated debate, which led to name-calling and profanity, but very little concern for Keyla. This is disturbing to me. Being deaf and non-verbal makes one vulnerable to a number of crimes, and I don't see much evidence that anyone cares. I'm sure people do care, but I'm trying to see the internet from Keyla's perspective, assuming she is alive and well, and browsing the web herself. I'd want her to see that someone cares. This isn't the typical sort of case that I write about, most are not nearly as recent, and most have more details that I can run with, but sometimes the lack of publicity compels me to write. The below article isn't about Keyla, but is about the neighborhood where she lived. I am going to contact this magazine and see if they will run a, hopefully more detailed, story on Keyla. It's all I can think of to do.
Number 5.
Joseph Edwards, nicknamed Joe Ed, went missing from Vidalia, Louisiana on July 12, 1964. I would first like to commend the Concordia Sentinel on an excellent job of covering this cold case. Their series of articles on this case blew me away. I, obviously, read tons of missing persons articles, but the Joseph Edwards articles are a rare example of how powerful a media outlet can be if it is willing to make the effort. The Sentinel obtained FBI files through the Freedom of Information Act after the FBI claimed there was no file. They attracted new witnesses who provided clues. They passed this information along to the FBI, but they didn't stop there. They followed up with these witnesses some time later and learned that they were never contacted by the FBI, in spite of the Sentinel relaying the information. The Sentinel responded by putting pressure on the FBI, pressure which is also applied through their articles. That said, Joseph Edwards was last seen at the Shamrock Motel, where he worked as a porter. He arrived at the motel at 11 p.m. in his two-tone blue and beige 1958 Buick. This is the last confirmed sighting of Joseph. Joseph's mother reported him missing, hysterically claiming that the Klan got my boy. She was, of course, referring to the Ku Klux Klan. As it turns out, the Shamrock Motel was a gathering place for KKK members, and Joseph was a prime target due to his, in that time and place, questionable relations with white women. Joseph had been seen by a fellow employee in one of the motel rooms with a white woman, and more notably, had been accused of kissing a white registration clerk against her will. The clerk, who did not want to press charges, confided in a friend who happened to be a probation officer. The probation officer assured her that he'd take care of Edwards. The probation officer later claimed that he did not personally harm Joseph, but that he had reported the incident to authorities. At approximately 12:30 a.m., Joseph's car was discovered along the highway between Vidalia and Faraday, near Dixie Lane's bowling alley. A tie, shaped like a noose, had been attached to the steering wheel, and there was blood in the car. Joseph's cousin, Carl, stated that he saw the abandoned car. Carl and 3 of his friends were accused of breaking into a store and were detained overnight at the Faraday jail. Although Carl was not harmed, his 3 friends were beaten repeatedly throughout the night by 2 deputies named Ogden and Delauder. They were then transported via patrol car, by Delauder, to the Vidalia Parish Jail. En route, they passed Joseph's car. Delauder eyed him through the rearview mirror and warned that, if anybody talked about what had transpired in the jail the night before, that the deputy would teach us all a lesson and we'd all end up missing like Joe. The manager of the Dixie Lane's bowling alley, where Joseph's car was found, had closed up his business and went for a couple drinks in a nearby bar. As he was going home, he saw a Buick similar to Joseph's traveling west toward Faraday. Shortly after, he saw a white Oldsmobile with flashing red lights on the dash and 2 long police radio antennae on the trunk roar past him with great speed. As he continued westbound, he eventually came upon the Oldsmobile, lights flashing, parked behind the Buick on the side of the road near the bowling alley. According to the witness, a large white man was in the driver's seat of the Oldsmobile, one male was in the Buick, and one or two men were standing by the driver's side of the Buick. The witness continued on his way, but then the Oldsmobile roared past him again, with several occupants inside.